many of us, no matter how long you've walked with Christ, struggle, deeply struggle with that, the abandonment of heart, the emptiness that just comes upon us sometimes. You know, do we not know Christ? Yes, we know Christ, but there's the sin nature, the stuff that rears its ugly head in our lives. You know, that sting that's still there. It haunts us. We're going to be looking at Isaiah 37 today. But I want to start with a little story, because I know that was a pretty serious piece, and I want to lighten it up just a wee bit. But you know, the devil was having a yard sale. All of his tools were marked with a different price. They were a fiendish lot. There was hatred and jealousy and discouragement, deceit, lying, and pride, all at expensive prices. But over to the side of the yard, on display was a tool more obviously worn than any of the other tools. It was also the most costly. The tool was labeled discouragement. When questioned, the devil said, "It's the most useful to me than any other tool. When I can't bring down my victims with any of the rest of these tools, I use discouragement, because so few people realize that it belongs to me." You see, Satan is never happier than when he sees people giving up to despair and becoming lost in hopelessness. Sometimes the world crashes in. You know, as I'm going to read these verses in Isaiah and Ezekiel in just a minute, but I want to set a tone here, because Ezekiel is standing in the middle of this desert. And if you can imagine pictures from the Gulf War with the bodies strewn over the side of the road for battle.
So we're in Ezekiel 37, not Isaiah.
Did I say Isaiah?
Yeah.
Sorry. Ezekiel. Put the book over. Another weeping prophet. Anyway, the despair that he must have felt looking at the bones, the casualties of war. I've struggled this week with hopelessness. You know, I've looked at so many of the circumstances of my life that I have no control over. Some conclusions that I came that I might never have an answer for in my lifetime. I might not ever be able to complete certain tasks that are just such a burden to me. When my friend Mike Lacona was doing his research on the resurrection, he determined to immerse himself in the question of, was Jesus real? And he determined that he was going to approach his research as a lost person, as a scholar would study any subject in history, and only base his conclusions on the facts. He said there was one night that he said he was in absolute despair, where he was laying in bed and staring at the ceiling, and his wife on the other side of the bed calls over to him and says, "So where are you at?" He goes, "I don't know. I figured out that he lived, but the rest of it, the conclusion's incomplete." I felt Ezekiel this week. I truly did. I lived out what I'm about to read. It says this in Ezekiel 37, verse 1, "And the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out by his Spirit. He set me down in the middle of the valley, which was full of bones. He led me all around them. There was a great many of them on the surface of the valley, and they were very dry. And he said to me, 'Son of man, can these bones live?' I replied, 'Lord God, only you know.' And he said to me, 'Prophesy concerning these bones, and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Lord God says to these bones. I will cause breath to enter you, and you will live. I will put tendons on you and make flesh grow on you and cover you with skin, and I will put breath in so that you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord God. So I prophesied as I'd been commanded, and while I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound. These bones came together, bone to bone. As I looked, tendons appeared on them, and flesh grew, and skin covered them, and there was no breath in them. And he said to me, prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of Man, and say to it, this is what the Lord God says, breathe. Come from four winds and breathe into these slain so that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them, and they came to life and stood on their feet, a vast army. Wow. Sounds like something out of an Indiana Jones movie. But the first point that I want to deal with, this hopelessness factor is there are situations where it appears that things are totally and completely hopeless. There are situations in our lives that look like we have no reason for any hope. Aren't there? Aren't there days when you get up and you look in the mirror and you just go, why? Why would God waste breath upon me? The picture portrayed here in Ezekiel was that of a nation of Israel in their eastern captivity and diaspora. The nation was virtually dead. It was lifeless, scattered, and bleached just as these conquering armies' corpses, which were strewn all across the battleground. There was no way humanly possible that they could ever arise from this defeat. It was impossible. The word hope in this passage is tikva in the Hebrew, meaning a cord which is bound and attached. Literal definition, whereas there's an expectation, a literal hanging on to who God is. That's hope. That's hope. You see, there's an element here that you and I have to come to grips with. The God at the other end of this cord does never let go, but we let go of the cord. We don't latch on to him. There was a man who approached a Little League baseball game one afternoon, and he saw this team getting trounced. He asked the little boy what the score was, and the boy responded, 18-0. We're really behind. The man said to the little boy, I bet you're discouraged. The kid goes, why should I be discouraged? We haven't got the bat yet. That's courtesy of Gerald Flurry, who I borrowed a little of this text from today, pastor in Ohio. Sometimes some people say things better than you can, but that's a cute story. But we have to come to grips with hope. Who can tell me, just shout it out, what book of the Bible the word hope appears more than any other book? What book in the Bible has more words of hope than any other book?
Psalms.
Psalms? Hebrews?
Proverbs.
How about Job? 17 times in the book of Job. No, it's not Job, it's Job. The book of Job, 17 times. This word, tikva, is used between Job and God in their conversation. Now, when I think of the book of Job, I'm thinking like, let me wear a burlap bag that flour just came up, dye it black, rip and tear it, roll around in the ash bin of a fireplace, and go out in public and say, I'm depressed. I mean, that is the epitome of Job. It's like, woe is me. Let me see. He was Bill Gates. He had billions. He had camels and sheep and cows, lands and houses and servants. Oh my. I heard that. He had a wife and family. And he had friends, so he thought. And he lost it all. He lost it all. To the point where his friends said, loser. Curse God and die. Actually his wife said that.